as I started listening to more and more podcasts, I started hearing about things like Four Sigmatic. That was kind of the entry, like the gateway sort of mushroom drug for people just learning about medicinal mushrooms. And that was the case for me.
They were on podcasts everywhere.
Oh yeah, everywhere.
Literally, you couldn't listen to a show without hearing Four Sigmatic.
Yeah, and it was Sean Stevenson that turned me on. And so then from there, when I was using these in my own life, coffees and mixtures and whatever, then it graduated to the mushroom unicorn, as I call it, which is AHCC, Active Hexose Correlated Compound.
Say that 10 times quickly.
Yeah.
Can you say that one more time?
Active Hexose Correlated Compound.
Okay. HVACC.
AHCC.
AHCC. Okay.
Yeah.
It's on the screen right now, everybody. The picture of it, because I know you formulated this yourself.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
So AHCC, it comes from basically the roots or the mycelia of shiitake mushrooms. It's cultured in a very specific way over the course of 60 days in these huge liquid tanks. And I won't get super deep into AHCC until unless you want to. But when I heard about AHCC, I was actually in my dental hygiene job. One of our patients had been diagnosed with HPV later in life, like middle age. She was in her 50s. And she had said that her naturopath recommended this mushroom to help clear HPV. And I was like, what? A mushroom that can clear HPV? I was like, was it reishi, chaga? I thought I knew something about these mushrooms. And I knew a bit, but not much. And the hygienist said, it was AHCC. And I immediately went online. I was like, what is this thing? And I had already known that HPV was a big problem because when you're a dental hygienist, you're going through the medical history of every single patient. So, hey, are there any changes to your medical history, this and that? And so I was seeing that HPV was a really common thing, but I didn't know of anything to help it. So when I heard that it worked, that this AHCC mushroom, quote unquote mushroom, worked, I was like, my interest was piqued. And I was like, I got to know about this thing. That was a spike moment.
Okay.
For sure.
I love these moments because I reflect back upon them when I forget how much they weighted on my soul.
Yes.
Like, for example, when we do anything in life, like I'm sure, tell people the URL. It's free and clear. What is it?
Yeah, it's clearhpv.com.
Clearhpv.com. This is not something easy to build. This takes fucking work, for the lack of a better term. And when you do that much work, you have to go back to those spike moments that you really were changed by in order to have them fuel you on a continuous basis. Because, man, it's not easy to create. There has to be some kind of weight, some kind of gravitas to keep us going. I'm sure that moment for you where you're like, wow, there's way more to mushrooms than I ever thought possible. But beyond just the science, like I get it too, because I'm intellectually stimulated by what science does. And I love science and I love how it impacts the body. On a spiritual level, on an emotional level, there's something else that this is providing reprieve for. Like there's something really specific that this specific blend of mushroom is helping people on. And maybe let's just dive right in. Like what even is HPV? Because in full transparency, like I'm not going to be a bullshitter. I did not even know what it was. I had to look it up a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So what is it? Let's start with that.
I would say you're in the majority of people, which is crazy. Not saying you're crazy, but
I actually am. I think in order to be really well, we have to be a little crazy.
Crazy. We're all.
We have to be a little crazy.
We're all a little dorky. We're all a little nerdy, and we're all a little crazy.
I hope so.
All the good ones are.
I hope so.
But yeah. So what I mean is, it's crazy that more people don't know about HPV because it affects basically all of us. That is 80 to 90% of men and women who are sexually active past the age of 15 are going to be exposed to HPV. And not only just exposed, but your body is going to have to deal with it. And so HPV stands for human papillomavirus, and it's really an umbrella. So it's an umbrella term for over 200 different strains of viruses. And I know there's a lot of controversy about this V word because, you don't have to go very far on Instagram or the web to see people talking about like, do viruses even exist? I'm fully aware of that. Right now, we don't have a better term for what this thing is. And I'm not even going to pretend like I know everything there is to know about viruses. No one can. But we have to use a word for what's happening in the body. And so I just want to like put that aside for this conversation. I'm sure there's some people listening that are like, I don't even believe in viruses. That's totally fine. I don't even know if I really, really do either, because I haven't been swayed one way or another yet. I'm not going to be that egotistical to say like, I know for sure 100% one way or another.
Two amazing resources, Zach Bush and Dr. Cowan, Dr. Tom Cowan.
Yes, and Zach Bush is, featured in our content of delivering this message of what viruses are, how they behave in the body.
You just sent somebody on a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother podcast right there.
Right,
Please
totally.
continue. Yeah.
But I need to address it because it's something that I hear often where it's like, oh, you teach about HPV. Well, viruses don't even exist. And it's like, okay, call it a football. I don't care what we call it. There's something happening in the body that is linked to cervical cancer for some women. So we need to look at this. We need to look at what's happening in the body. So all that's my disclaimer. Okay. So HPV is this umbrella term for over 200 different strains of these different variations of viruses. And they're bucketed into two major buckets of low risk and high risk, which I mentioned earlier. The low risk strains are more associated with things like genital warts, benign growths, things like that. They're not like cute. They're not awesome. People don't love to have these things, but they're probably not going to lead to anything like cancer. The high risk strains are named as such because they have a stronger association to things like cervical cancer and in men, anal cancer, penile cancer, things like that. All of these are rare. It's less than 1% of HPV cases will go on to develop something like cancer, but it's not zero. So it's something that we need to be aware of. So that's what HPV is. It's the most commonly transmitted STI, sexually transmitted infection. And like I said, 80 to 90% of us will have to deal with this at some point in our lives because it is that common.
Check out some of the videos on this screen that are perfectly curated based on the video you just saw. Make sure you follow me, and I'll see you in the next video.